Okay, let's unpack this. For months, Washington, D.C. was just completely consumed by this incredible political drama.
Right.
And not over a war, not some economic crisis, but over a legislative fight. A fight to force the Department of Justice to release every single document on Jeffrey Epstein's prosecution.
It was legislative chaos, really, but it was all masquerading as accountability.
Exactly.
We've gathered all the sources on this, the political back and forth, the contents of the files that actually leaked, and the whole legal framework that made this so difficult to begin with.
So our mission today is a deep dive into this entire saga, this unusual bipartisan push for the Epstein Files Transparency Act, H.R. 4405.
Right, in the 119th Congress.
We're going to cut through all the noise and really get to the key political moves and what these documents actually tell us.
And we have to start with that core tension you just mentioned. This fight wasn't just about disclosure.
Yeah.
It was about this fundamental clash between the government's instinct to keep secrets, especially when powerful people are involved, and this just unprecedented public demand for transparency.
That sets the stage perfectly. So the question is, how did this bill, a bill meant to declassify everything, become the most dramatic political battle of late 2025? It all comes down to this one procedural tool that is rarely used.
And even more rarely successful.
Right.
You're talking about the discharge petition. The bill itself, H.R. 4405, that was introduced by Ro Khanna, a Democrat. But when House leadership, in this case Speaker Mike Johnson, just decides to bury a bill in committee.
You need a way to get it out.
You need a nuclear option to go around them, and that's the discharge petition.
So can you just quickly remind us why that's such a big deal?
Well, sure. It's basically a constitutional rebellion in Congress. You need 218 members to sign on.
A majority.
A majority. And if you get it, you can force a bill out of committee and right onto the House floor for a vote. It completely strips the Speaker of his control over what gets voted on.
And the fact that this one succeeded. I mean, that says everything about the internal turmoil, doesn't it? It was filed by a Republican, Thomas Massie, but it needed this really strange political alignment to get over the finish line.
That's what made November 12th so historic. When the petition finally got its 218 signatures, the vast majority, 214 of them, were Democrats.
Okay.
But it all hinged on 4 crucial Republican signatures. Massie, of course, but also Mace, Boebert, and Green. That tiny group, that rebellion, it signaled that the pressure from the public had finally gone beyond party loyalty.
And the pushback against those 4 was immediate. It was intense.
Oh, yeah.
Our sources have reports from an anonymous administration official who called voting for Massie's petition a very hostile act to the administration.
The White House was fighting it tooth and nail. They saw the risk. They knew they couldn't let the rank-and-file force a vote like this. Right. And our sources detail some pretty high drama around getting that final signature.
The drama all centered on Adelita Garalva, right, the new Democrat from Arizona.
She had just won a special election, but Speaker Johnson was delaying her swearing in, saying it was, procedural issues.
But the calculation was pretty clear.
Oh, it was transparent. Everyone knew Garalva was going to be number 218. Her own state's attorney general actually sued Johnson to force the swearing in. The delay was just to buy time.
To try and flip one of those 4 Republicans.
Exactly. And that's where you see this ultimate test of loyalty play out. Just before Garalva was finally sworn in, and she signed the petition the second she could.
Immediately.
You had administration heavyweights. I'm talking Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel.
Wow.
Meeting directly with Representative Lauren Boebert, one of the crucial 4.
Trying to get her to pull her name off?
Clearly. It was an attempt to get her to remove her signature, which would have killed the whole thing. The fact that they failed that the petition went through anyway, it just shows you the incredible power of public momentum on this.
And the depth of that split inside the GOP. It really sets the stage for the second act here. This is where it gets really interesting.
The president's position.
The president's position on these files, which just seemed to change with the political winds.
His shifting stance was, it was a masterclass in political maneuvering. Or maybe miscalculation.
Right.
You go back to the 2024 campaign, on guys like Lex Fridman. He promised full transparency. He told everyone he'd release the files if he got reelected.
That was the promise. But then, fast forward to July 2025, the DOJ and FBI put out a joint statement saying their investigation was over, no more files would be released. And the whole narrative just flips.
It completely flipped. Suddenly, the president starts calling the whole thing a big hoax.
And that reversal caused this sharp internal backlash, didn't it? Especially with conservative media figures who had been his biggest supporters.
Oh, absolutely. You had Joe Rogan, a huge voice, who publicly accused the administration of gaslighting the public. Andrew Schultz went even further. He said the president was insulting our intelligence.
So it was fracturing his own base. People who felt they were being lied to about something they saw as critical.
And that conflict just exploded into open warfare inside the Republican Party. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, one of those 4 key signatures, she publicly said her big fallout with the president was specifically because of this Epstein files controversy.
Her public statements were, they were extraordinary. She didn't just criticize, she posted online that the network must be exposed.
And she added that ominous warning.
Yeah, suggesting that if something happens to me, people should find out who was trying to stop the information from coming out. That's not normal political talk.
No. It took the whole thing from a legislative fight into this high-stakes question of, personal safety and a systemic cover-up.
True or not, it raised the stakes.
Right. But then came the final, shocking U-turn.
Just a few days after the discharge petition succeeded, on November 16th, the president completely reverses himself on Truth Social. He urges House Republicans to vote for the bill, saying, and I'm quoting here, they should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide.
He was trying to get in front of a parade. He couldn't stop. He then pivoted and started calling the whole thing a Democrat hoax designed to distract from his successes. It was this massive political calculation to try and preempt the narrative that he'd been obstructing justice.
The pressure was just too much.
Too much to sustain.
Okay, so let's pivot to what was actually in these documents, the information that created this whole political firestorm. The House Oversight Committee released over 20,000 documents, emails, texts.
And these files, they give you this really unsettling look into Epstein's inner circle in the years right before his final arrest. And they repeatedly reference powerful political figures.
We should say the president has consistently denied any wrongdoing.
Consistently. But one of the most striking relationships detailed in these files was between Epstein and Steve Bannon, the former Trump advisor.
The sheer volume of communication is startling. Hundreds of messages.
Hundreds. They're discussing business, the Middle East, and, shockingly, a planned documentary.
A documentary?
Yes. Bannon apparently called it a potential hagiography. Basically, a project to rehabilitate Epstein's reputation after his first conviction.
So Bannon was aware that Epstein's image needed, whitewashing.
It certainly suggests that. And the messages weren't just business. In one exchange from June 2019, right before Epstein's final arrest, Epstein writes this chilling line to Bannon.
What does it say?
He says, "Now you can understand why Trump wakes up in the middle of the night sweating when he hears you and I are friends."
Wow.
Whether that's true or just rhetorical, it gives you a window into Epstein's mindset. He believed his connection to Bannon was leverage. It was a threat, an assertion of power.
Another associate who shows up a lot is the author Michael Wolff.
Right. Epstein was apparently talking to Wolff about financial schemes and shared this very derogatory view of the president's business empire. He alleged, quote, "Donald doesn't really own very much. He rents out his name."
A narrative that paints the president as vulnerable.
Exactly. It served Epstein's interests. But the most provocative stuff in these documents, it's the direct allegations about victims.
Where the material has these really contested, really explosive claims from Epstein's inner circle.
Specifically, a 2011 email from Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. It references a victim alleging she spent hours at my house with him, referring to Trump. And he notes that this victim has never once been mentioned in public reports.
And then there's a 2019 message from Epstein to Wolff.
That one contains the explicit claim. Of course he knew about the girls, as he asks Ghislaine to stop.
Which directly contradicts the official White House line that the president knew nothing about Epstein's illegal activities.
And the White House counter-narrative was, of course, very swift. They accused Democrats of cherry-picking documents to generate clickbait and just kept repeating that the whole thing was a hoax.
Just trying to dismiss it all as political noise?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole intense fight for disclosure, it runs right up against the legal system, which actually requires secrecy sometimes. This is the context that made the whole legislative fight necessary in the first place.
That's absolutely right. When we connect this back to the bigger picture, what we're dealing with is the qualified public right of access.
Oh.
It's rooted in common law and the First Amendment, and it basically says judicial functions should be public. Accountability depends on it.
But that word qualified is doing a lot of work there.
It's key. The right to access is always balanced against compelling confidentiality interests. The system allows records to be sealed for good reasons.
Like what?
Well, grand jury proceedings have to be secret to protect investigations. The identities of minors have to be protected by law. And any info that's part of an ongoing active investigation is, routinely sealed.
And we saw this play out in real time, didn't we? Judge Engelmayer, in August 2025, he denied a request to unseal grand jury files from the Ghislaine Maxwell case.
Exactly. He was just following established legal precedent. And that denial underscores why this bill, H.R. 4405, was so necessary. The public couldn't rely on the courts to unseal certain things.
So Congress was the only path left.
The only path to mandate declassification. And Congress was being driven by just immense public pressure. The appetite for transparency was, well, it was overwhelming.
Absolutely overwhelming. A Marist poll from September 2025 found that 90% of Americans wanted at least some of the files released.
Even with victim names blacked out. And 77% wanted everything released. This went way beyond typical political divides.
And here's the fascinating part, a real piece of uncommon knowledge for you, the listener. It's the demographic that was driving this demand. The highest support, for full disclosure, 94%, came from white, college-educated women. And suburban voters overall were at 85% support.
Which is so significant. Because those groups, they represent the political middle. They're the key swing voters. Their demand for transparency, crossing party lines like that, it sent a signal to both parties that obstruction was not a good political strategy anymore.
The risk of hiding the files became greater than the risk of releasing them.
Precisely.
So after all of this, the petition, the presidential flip-flop, the leaks, where do things stand right now?
The act is expected to come to a House floor vote very soon, thanks to that petition. And reports are suggesting we could see 100 or more Republicans joining the Democrats, which would give the bill huge momentum.
But it's not a law yet. It passes the House, then it has to go to the Senate.
Where it needs 60 votes.
And then, even with his reversal, the president still has to sign it. Or they need a two-thirds majority in both chambers to override a veto.
The battle isn't over, but the political landscape has shifted for good. And if you look at the bigger societal takeaway here, this whole conflict just encapsulates a deep fundamental breakdown of public trust in our institutions.
How so?
When people were polled on what they thought was in the files, 84% said they believed the files likely contained something embarrassing about billionaires or powerful figures.
So it's not about one person.
No, it shows this pervasive belief that elites protect their own no matter their party, and that belief is what's driving this entire demand for disclosure.
So what does this all mean for you, the person trying to make sense of all this chaos?
Well, the core takeaway, I think, goes back to that legal principle we discussed. Sealed records are often temporary. This Epstein Files Transparency Act, it's really an attempt to define when the government's need for secrecy finally expires. For you, the listener, the ultimate question here is, when does the public's right to accountability finally outweigh the initial need for confidentiality in these huge cases involving the most powerful people? And it seems like the court of public opinion, at least, has tipped decisively toward disclosure.